Drink your coffee, read your sports, listen to the Dream Report.
Good morning and welcome to the Dream Report, the weekly narrative podcast for equipment, machinery, vehicle, and fleet appraisers. It is Monday morning, June 22, 2026, and you are listening to The Week in Appraising. I am Marcus.
And I am Dana. Glad you could join us. Today we are looking at a market that is defying the spreadsheets of almost every analyst who predicted a clean downward slide for used iron this year.
Right. The big industry narrative for 2026 was supposed to be the great softening. We all saw the new equipment lead times normalize, the supply chain backlogs cleared, and the post-pandemic tailwinds finally faded out. Sellers were supposed to be sitting at the negotiating table, ready to take a haircut. But the data we are seeing this quarter is saying, not yet. Today, we are breaking down why these prices are refusing to fall, what that means for your comp pool, how it affects the cost approach floor, and what is heading toward your engagement calendar.
Let us start with the data that came out of the Rouse May 2026 Market Trends Report. Rafi Arahonian, the managing director of Rouse Appraisals, put out some numbers that really highlight the contradiction we are seeing in the market right now. If you look at Rouse's Q1 2026 data, earth-moving equipment actually held its ground or even improved in price. What makes this a true contradiction is that the volume of earth-moving equipment running through auction was actually higher year over year compared to Q1 2025.
That is the part that should make any appraiser stop and look twice. Standard economic theory says when auction volume goes up, prices soften. But earth-moving iron is bucking that trend. Now, if you look closer at the Rouse report, you see a major divergence. Aerial equipment and forklifts actually fell in value during Q1. That divergence is really the core point here. We are not looking at a blanket, strong or weak market. It is entirely a category question. If you are an appraiser pulling comps this week and you grab the wrong vertical or apply a generic market adjustment across different equipment classes, you're going to end up with the wrong answer on your report.
Exactly. Applying a flat 5% downward adjustment across a mixed fleet because the market is softening, that's where the errors come in. A crawler excavator and a scissor lift are running on completely different tracks right now, and the spread in that comp pool reflects it. And we have secondary confirmation on this from the ENR second quarter 2026 cost report, which was published last week on June 17, 2026.
Right. Brendan Gallagher, an analyst at Equipment Watch, broke down the numbers in that report. He noted that used equipment was down 5.52% on the resale market year over year and down 10.89% at auction year over year. Now, those might sound like the headline numbers of a declining market, but Gallagher's actual read on the data is steady.
And his reasoning is solid. Those price drops are following a highly predictable seasonal curve, not breaking down. The declines we are seeing are proportional to how elevated the prior year was, rather than evidence of a new market floor collapsing. It's a return to normal seasonal patterns, not a free fall. So when you have a client or seller looking at your report and saying, "Hey, I've been hearing that used prices are tanking. Why is your valuation so high?" You have a very specific data-backed answer ready for them.
It turns the conversation from an argument into a question: which category are they talking about and compared to when? If they're looking at late model earth moving with low hours, the floor is holding remarkably well. If they're talking about 5-year-old aerial lifts compared to the peak of 2022, yes, those are down. But the comp pool is best kept tightly segregated by category and season to reflect that reality.
That holding floor brings us to a major factor we are seeing in the field, which is the sheer value placed on certainty. On the Moving Iron podcast recently, Casey Seymour and Greg Peterson flagged a massive trend regarding used machinery values and the specific role of maintenance documentation. They've been analyzing auction results, and their analysis this month shows that a documented maintenance history is producing a highly measurable spread at auction.
This is something that is showing up in the field every day now. You can have two machines of the exact same make, model, year, and nearly identical hours. One comes with a full-service binder, every fluid analysis, every scheduled PM, every track replacement documented. The other has patchy records or nothing but a verbal assurance that it was serviced regularly. In this market, that spread is not just a nominal $500. It's showing up as a significant percentage adjustment in the comp pool.
Buyers are pricing future component failure directly into their bids when they don't see paper. And this ties directly back to our cost approach calculations. When we look at the replacement cost new, or RCN, the price of new iron is still incredibly high. That high RCN is what's propping up used values because a new machine is so expensive and often comes with complex Tier 4 systems that buyers are hesitant to manage. So they want used, but they want used they can trust.
So the cost approach floor and the maintenance premium are essentially the economic force working from two different directions. The high cost of new iron pushes buyers toward the used market, but because they're paying historically high prices for used, they demand proof of maintenance to de-risk the transaction. Working appraisers are treating the service binder as a quantifiable adjustment in the sales comparison approach, not a soft factor in the condition section.
Exactly. USPAP Standard 7 covers the personal property appraisal development process, and that includes analyzing significant professional records and maintenance history when available and relevant. If you're culling a comp that has zero maintenance history and using it to value a machine that has a meticulous single-owner service record, that gap represents a material condition adjustment. Left unaccounted, the final value conclusion runs artificially low, and an auditor or a knowledgeable client will surface it.
Let's shift focus from the physical iron to the paper transactions, because the financing and corporate deal data we saw this month is pointing to a very busy summer for our engagement calendars. First, let's look at the lending side. The Equipment Leasing and Finance Association, or ELFA, released their June 2026 Monthly Confidence Index for the equipment finance industry, and the index rose to 63.7. That's up from 59.9 in May, marking a second consecutive month of improvement.
That is a leading indicator we always watch closely. When lender confidence ticks up, their appetite for securing equipment as collateral increases. That means more refinancing, more equipment-backed lines of credit, and ultimately more appraisal requests. Lenders do not close these deals without a certified valuation, so a rising confidence index is an early signal that the bank work pipeline is starting to fill up.
And it is not just bank refinancing. We are seeing a significant signal on the corporate transaction side. EY Parthenon released their mid-year 2026 M&A outlook this month, and they are projecting U.S. deal volume over $100 million to be up 8% for the full year. But here's the nuance. That growth is being driven entirely by corporate M&A, which is projected to be up 11%, while private equity deal volume is expected to remain flat.
That distinction is everything for our scope of work. When corporate buyers acquire operating businesses, those transactions trigger purchase price allocation, or PPA work, under ASC 805. As appraisers, we know that PPA is a completely different animal than your standard orderly liquidation value or forced liquidation value. We're talking about establishing fair value under a specific accounting standard, which has different reporting requirements, different comp selection criteria, and a very different audience, namely the client's external auditors.
Right. If you're doing an ASC 805 valuation, you're not writing a report for a local asset-based lender who wants to know what the iron will bring at a cleanup auction next Tuesday. You're writing for an auditor who is going to scrutinize your cost approach, your physical depreciation calculations, and your source data. The fact that corporate M&A is driving the transaction volume means we're going to see a shift toward these high-fee, high-scrutiny engagements rather than quick-turn liquidation appraisals.
It's a clear signal that the engagement type follows the buyer type. Corporate-led deals pull us toward fair value and require us to look closely at the income and cost approaches, whereas private equity-led deals historically pull us toward OLV. Knowing that corporate M&A is the dominant wave this summer lets you prepare your templates, check your ASC 805 guidelines, and set your rates and your scope of work before the phone even rings.
So as we look at the week ahead, the central takeaway for anyone sitting down at their desk this Monday morning is that the market is refusing to be painted with a broad brush. Your comp pool is not a single unified market right now. Earthmoving and aerial are operating on completely different planes. Well-documented machines are commanding a premium that cannot be ignored. And the corporate M&A wave is going to demand a much higher level of reporting rigor than standard liquidation work.
It really comes down to asking the right sorting questions at the very beginning of your scope of work. When that call comes to value a fleet, the appraisers getting the right answer are going in with questions about maintenance records and transaction context before pulling a single comp, and making sure the comps reflect the specific category dynamics, not just the asset class. That's what separates a defensible report from one that gets picked apart by an auditor.
Well said. That's the Week in Appraising for this Monday morning, June 22nd, 2026. We will be back next week with more data and more perspective from the field. Have a productive week out there in the spreadsheets.
See you next Monday.